anyone ever heard of Joseph Kony? He says he's a leader, but he's only a phony. He's a coward that slips into a village at night, kills the adults and steals the children who cannot fight. He destroys their innocence by exposing them to acts of brutality, and succeeds in forever changing their notion of reality. March for miles and miles through a jungle ill-dressed, beaten for hours and hours until they have confessed, told to turn their comrades in who might try to escape, and to turn over their sisters for older soldiers to rape. Some of the kids they steal are barely over 7, yet they're expected to carry an AK-47. They get a jungle education in atrocity. Their minds are overwhelmed by the toxicity, by a religion warped by deviant mysticism, and a self-appointed god of desophisticism. The village kids travel for miles to the city at night, where they sleep in the streets to the morning light. You see, if they stay at home, Joseph Kony will get them. Well, they'll become the receptors for the lies he has fed them, where their childhoods are shot out of the barrel of a gun, in a war that goes on and can never be won. Over 20 years have passed and nobody has caught him, but there's many people who tell you they've been in the jungle and fought him. They say he's like a ghost who just disappears. Too bad we couldn't say the same for the children's tears. He slips back and forth across the Ugandan border. He's hiding in the Congo where he's causing more disorder. He's like a Jim Jones leading his own cult of destruction, stealing the most vulnerable members of society's construction. Where's the UN to help these children who are stolen, who are knocked over as easily as pins when you're bowling? And even if we find them and they manage to escape, it's hard to erase years of hate and mental rape. And often we see them sitting there with an empty stare, where their thoughts could be taking them anywhere. Back to the jungle where they had no choice, forced to be a soldier where they had no voice. With feet that were swollen and bellies that were aching, they carried supplies that were most often back-breaking, where pain and horror caused their kinder memories to fade, leaving memories of dead children on the ground where they laid. Like David Koresh's trap that became a towering inferno, they are locked up inside with a shame that's internal. And no matter that they were stolen in the middle of the night, they are still viewed by others as combatants in the fight. And if they turn 18 and they haven't run away, they'll be convicted of insurrection and face a prison stay. It's like their fate got decided on the night they were taken, and from that moment on they'd be forever forsaken. It's like their lives got plucked like grapes from a vine, forced to become a glass of sacramental wine, just to be sipped and never really tasted, like a roast that's been cooked but never been basted. Youth activists have lobbied President Obama, but from his president action I guess he don't wanna take the action that would allow these children to be free. A well-placed sniper shot to take out Joseph Kony. But then maybe African children just aren't that significant. It seems like we always viewed these people as malignant, but we were the most serious cancer on the earth. We're the ones who gave racism birth. We're the ones with rot at our core. Our thoughts are often like an oozing sore. They said that AIDS is the worst disease, but we've brought more people to their knees. Like HIV's attack on the immune system, our racism is attacking our internal wisdom. Like a mind that's been racked by progressive dementia, our futures have been attacked by a regressive potentia. Like trying to hear when you're deaf or see when you're blind. There's no prosthetic device to help us be kind. So maybe we could claim we suffer from a disability, or we could find another excuse for our inability. But we give no exception to those we've put to death, like those who've been born with alcohol on their breath, or like Eileen Warnos, who died paranoid and psychotic, whose crimes were most likely psychological and biotic. We're quick to push the lever that begins the lethal injection. We're slow to take a look at our own moral infection. So I ask you, when will the world's innocence be free? When will we have the eyes that can truly see that we're no longer following a path of evolution, that we've forgotten the reason why we began a revolution, that somehow we become immune to antibiotics, and perhaps what we really need is antipsychotics, because I could swear we're suffering from some sort of delusion when we agree to become involved in a deadly conclusion, like when we make decisions that threaten thousands of lives, like when we ignored Rwanda's importation of thousands of knives. Well, we said we couldn't go in due to political reasons. Well, on the news we saw people with numerous lesions, and we continued to refuse to call it a genocide when it was clear that the country was committing suicide. We chose our words carefully to deflect our apathetic attitude. There's nothing that we do that will earn us any gratitude. There's a difference between a human being and being human. Just like there's a difference between a man and a woman. But just like the reality that opposites attract, our belief in our superiority is not a fact. And when will our race ever find its humility? When will we stop following the paths of futility? I am a member of the human race, and everyone I meet has the same face. I refuse to subscribe to your pattern of discrimination and the behaviors you engage in to justify your incrimination. Africa is the place where mankind was born. Greed is the reason why Africa is war-torn. We've infected this continent with a Western disease, with a self-serving bias that intends to displease. We've taught hit-and-run tactics, rape and destruction. We've never bothered to model positive acts of construction. We need to find ourselves on the other end of the gun. We need to experience what it's like to lose what you've won. We need to understand what it's like to wear the chains of slavery, where just having the will to survive is an act of bravery. I am humbled by the people of other races. I've seen the photojournalist pictures of painful faces. I've stood in awe in the presence of Nelson Mandela. It's not something I thought I could ever tell ya. I've never thought I'd see the day that he'd be free, or that in his presence is a place I would ever be. But where one man is freed, so many have died, and the killers covered their tracks and hid the truth that they lied. There are so many names of the brave people that we have never heard. There are so many speeches that have been made where we silence their word. So this is in memory of all the silenced voices of the brave. This is the little I can give for all that they gave.